All right, how you doing? Sam here with you. It is Wednesday, the 21st of August, and we're going to take a look at Ethereum Classic here to the dollar by request. Members are voting that up, and it's kind of a mix across the board here, but I chose Ethereum Classic because I think there are a few things here that are worth note. Now, we will get there in a second. For those of you here watching on YouTube, or perhaps you got here from Twitter, I just bring this to your attention. We are offering this little promo, just a short-term thing we're going to offer to you here. So 20% off of your first month of your month-to-month membership, if that interests you, or 25% off of any of the shorter-term monthly, multi-month, if you will, memberships that we're offering. So, yeah, if you've been considering joining us, this is a little promo here. You might consider taking advantage of that. Now, you do have to pay attention to the little code here. So you can find this over on our Twitter feed. It'll be right at the top. So if you're interested, there'll be links there, or you can always write us if you have questions. And it's pretty straightforward, but just so you know, we'll do this. It's relatively short term. We're only making 15 of these available. So if you are interested, you might want to consider that, because these tend to go fast. All right, so there you go. Okay, with that said, let's go take a look at Ethereum Classic. Okay, guys, back with you here. It's the 21st of August on a Wednesday mid-afternoon. We're going to take a look at Ethereum Classic to the dollar. Now, you guys were a bit all over the place with your requests here, so I chose this. A few of you were looking for this. I thought there was more content here, both in terms of a potential trade that could be setting up, as well as just some things to be able to show you. So, one thing to consider when you're trading Ethereum or Ethereum Classic is how the two are relating to one another. So this is a spread that you can pull up on Binance. It's Classic to Ethereum. And I was just curious how this looked, and if it was trading technically. I mean, you've got, this is a mess here, so you got to keep it away from that. But this was absolutely remarkable. So when you first look at that, so your first thought is, well, it looks like I probably draw a pretty nice channel on that, just using the 3 pivots I can connect. So we're down to the center line. Now we've had a good break here, but then just eyeballing that made me wonder if that was technical. So just looking at that, if I can get that right on that high to that low, I'll be damned. Look at that. That's tick to tick. Right? If you want to know what that algorithmic footprint looks like, there's for people to say, oh shit, that algorithm's not in crypto. Well, I beg to differ, right? That is about is I don't think I can put in a better example. Right? That's incredible, tick to tick. And here we are in Ethereum Classic to Ethereum on a spread. Yet, right? Algorithms always there. That algorithm is always there. Every market, every asset. I don't care what it is. It's always there. All right. So what do we have here? We have a contender for a low of Ethereum Classic outperforming Ethereum. So do we have a start on something? Well, maybe. Of course, you would want to pay attention to the next pivot, right? So take a note here. So what have we just done? We've just broken the 65. You go, oh, that's it. Okay, here we go. Well, remember, you got to go back to the dominant. So in taking this one out, right? That's already completed. So this, not that you would necessarily be trading in here, but this is that alternating pattern. So the next time we come to that 50. Be something to pay attention to. Anyway, right? So you may not be trading that spread, although you could. If we go look at Ethereum Classic here, so we chose this for a couple of reasons here. Now, so I'm over here on Binance, so it's a Classic to the dollar tether. So a couple of things to note here. So you come out of the chute here off of this low, and it looks like at first glance, until you work through it, that, oh man, I've got a nice little ripping 5, maybe an impulse, until you work through the subdivision, and we get this overlap here. So you've got to trade it as a leading diagonal. Oh, and I think all of our swing relationships are strong enough here. So we get that. So 5 is longer than 3, 3 is longer than 1. So we're all good here as a leading diagonal coming off of the low. And then of course you'd have a nice channel ripping you up here. But since we've got, I would be looking over here to say, all right, well, what's the first channel that I can work with here? So if I put these 3 together here, kind of looking as so, potentially that's a circumstance where cloning this might get you to include the upper pivot. So we're getting getting the bulk of it here. I don't know that we need to keep that on here, but these three were, this what framed the initial part of the market. So I might leave that on there, or we could do it this way and just change that color and put that in blue here, so we don't lose track of that. So if there's a move to get, well, if we get up above that, very common to come back here, and you might look for some confluence here between these two channels. So this, at the moment, all right, so on the assumption that we'd be labeling this of a 1 off of the low, we got to put these somewhere. Let's get that up to something. All right, so you can see it. All right, so there's a contender for a leading diagonal into a 1. Now, could we be done here? Well, can't say it looks great here. So of course the challenge here for a bull is, well, if we've got a leading diagonal and we've got an A, a B, and a contender here for a C to be going in, well, can you put the C here? Could we be done? Well, I don't think we can go there just yet until something. We'd need to see some sort of dramatic push up here with substantial, all the ingredients of a big rip, right? You want to see high volume. You want to see it break any prior resistance. So just from the top, right, it's just the basic stuff here. We're going to have to get through the 65 here, 825, let's call it, before you can really ring the bell here and say the low is in. So just looking at the subdivision here, it would imply that your best case here is we're looking for to complete the 5 of a C coming down here to give us a deep 2. Right, it's not ideal. So let me go from a 4 to a 1 hour here for a bull. Right, so if you're looking at this, see, it's the subdivision that gets a little wonky. So this, right, at first glance, you're kind of looking at this going, well, what's the big deal here? It looks like I got a nice triangle. Well, can't have a triangle in the second. So it's tempting to think, oh, A, B, C, D, E, but you can't have it. So you've got to reconsider the count and say, is there a way to work around that? Well, I can get the straight rip down here. I got to go A, B, C into the 2, but then, right, this is what's problematic for calling this the low. I can get a 1, 2. I can get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got all the subdivision I need here. It's just like, we are long enough. So the length of the 1 projected from that proposed 2, we get through the 1, 2, 7, 2. Interestingly, the pivot down here is the 2, 7, 2. So perhaps, right, I can make that case here for the 3 to be in relative to the move off the top. So if that's the 1, that's the 2. I'm kind of in no man's land down here for the low. I didn't make my 1618. I wouldn't invalidate the count. It's not that it must make that. That's just the highest probability. But I can work the subdivision here into that 3. Now, does this look like we're impulsive? Right? You know, maybe you can make a case that you've got some sort of a 1 and a long sloppy 2. Well, this better really get rolling here, because right now it looks like all we're doing is just setting up kind of so it would appear that it would be something along these lines for an ABC. Now, what bulls have working for you here is the length of time, right? So if this is our 4, let's just use that. We'll just use this for length of time relative to our 2. Right, not so good. Right, that symmetry is all wrong. So then you've got to look at that and think, okay, am I wrong here? Can I finish this? Is there another way to finish this down here? Well, I suppose your best case would be to try and connect this here, that you had your 3, 4, and you're going to get a truncated 5 into a double bottom, but then that symmetry doesn't work either. So you're kind of stuck here going, well, I can't say I love the length of time here. Even if you try and compress it a little bit, I sure would be paying attention to the 100. So from the length of the A projected from the B, well, note here we get a little confluence, but a candidate here. Now, right, it's always just potentially a location to be watching out for. A, B, C, it's not going to be great symmetry. See, the more ideal would have been a push down here. Now it looks like it's all connected. Now we got to deal with this floating congestion here. So what is this? Sideways fuckery. That's about all you can do with it, is just say, all right, well, I just got a box here of consolidation. A breakout, well, you know, you're hard pressed not to be thinking ABC. I got a nice little upsloping channel, would set that up just beautifully. So you'd have to consider, well, despite the relatively poor symmetry you'd be dealing with, maybe you get into something like this. Right, again, now I don't have this, but on the assumption that we're going to come up here and make a pivot there, so we'd be looking for some technical confluence. So from the 2 through the proposed low of the 3, we get right on that. Well, now look what we get here. So note here we're coming into, we'd have this nice confluence. So we'd have, now without the pivot, I can't really draw this trend line here. This is kind of a potential place where we might be looking for a reaction. So something like that would finish it, would give me the 3-4. Now, right? So let's not. I'm gonna get off track there. So what we could do, there's really not another way to draw that here, so other than the upsloping channel here. So if we're gonna hit the 100 and the 50 at the same time, if I do get a pivot there, then I can come back in and put this on, right? And then work from that, thinking, oh, well, maybe I'm gonna come down here to the median line. Right now, it's just a perspective pivot because of the technical confluence there. Just looking left. Well, we do have a little low volume node here where the market has, we don't have much acceptance. That would be a little bit of a front run. But this confluence point here definitely gets my attention. That's something to pay attention to. So even if we're trying to dig through, you know, this almost, you could make a case that there's a little start on an impulse down there. Let me go 30 minutes, show you what I mean. So, all right, there's our target. So if this is gonna hold as the B down here, so let me tighten this up. Fuck, since we just moved time frames. That 1, 2, 3, that looks, boy, it's all kinds of ugly. It's, yeah, Jesus. You'd have to go A, B, C to do it this way. Now you can, if we dig in here, you can make a case for an impulse off of the low here. But it's a bit, so here you can see it. So I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me get that, let's get way down here. I can get that in. But what do we do with this here? So this is a slightly lower low. Yeah, come here. Do you have to truncate, or you got? Well, you can get it. So actually, let me take this down a degree. Okay, so potentially now you could make this case. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can get a 1, A, B, C into a very deep 2. It would look like this would have to be the 3 here, and 4 maybe, and then going up for the 5. Now let me get that up. Fuck, let me get that up a degree here. Let's go to green. Okay, maybe, right? So you got the building blocks for it. So is this potentially a 4? Well, actually it looks like a 5 just went in there. So maybe not yet. Now we're down. We're really scrunching in here. Could we make a case for the ABC here? 1, 2, I don't know if that's long enough. Let's just check it here. So do we have a contender for a 1, 2, 3? Yep, we do. Make sure that's right on there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'd overlap, so it'd have to be a diagonal. I'm just trying to see if we can work an ABC there, because ideally you'd like this to be done here, but you'd have to be thinking A, B. It doesn't look like we're done. I'm more inclined to think that we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of an A, B going in. We got to get the C down here, but this is where the symmetry gets a little askew here. Now let's think about that. So if I've got, so note here, I've got this oh shit, what was I pulling from? It was way over here. I think it was a prior wave 1. Well, we can use that. I'll just bring it down here. We'll just use that as the 1, 2 here of this proposed 3. So just measuring from the low to see how is it look consistent here? Well, here's 2618. So if that's the 3, we're getting a pretty deep rip here, and part of that is because of the depth of the 2. If this is going to play as the 2, which right now, technically, right, nice little ABC comes down. We hold the low, so I can make that case for a 3 in here. So can I get the ABC to finish here? So from the 2 through the pivot up here, I'm getting kind of deep here. So you wouldn't want to see it break the golden zone, right? It just reduces the probabilities here that we get a big push up here, but it certainly could happen, right? We know an algo doesn't care, so we come into that golden zone. That wouldn't kill the count. You'd like to see that hold. Just you could almost think of this as a double bottom. So whether you're pulling from here or here, we're within fractions. All right, so let's just stay with the 2 until we need to have, until we're forced to move it. So 1, 2, I get a clear impulse. This is a little suspect here. So that's a tough call to make the case that, oh, it's time to buy it here, because this looks much more like a 5. So could it go? Sure, of course, right? So we're right between the 50 and the 618. It could do that. But do could maybe, is that enough for you? Give me that, and then I'm all over it. But this does not look like a completed correction. Even just length of time is a little thin relative to the 1, 2. I mean, it's not horrible, but is it enough? So for me, I would want to see this complete. So I don't know how this is going to go out of here. If we go up and do something like this, right? If we get something like that, well, I'll be back here trying to figure out how I can get an ABC in there. Right now, that looks like 5 down in a leading diagonal. So I'm more inclined to be looking for another test down here. It looks like this is it's already struggling. We're not ripping off the slash pivot here. Note how we came right to the Vegas wave, to the tick. So for me, I want to see this confirm. I don't know if we confirm off of this pivot or if we're going to be confirming off of a pivot over here. But either way, I get a nice target up here. Now, if I get something like that, then I can start putting together a channel here. I get some targets, and then all of that kind of still. Remember, we've got this confluence point up here, which is 50 from the high. So you got to keep that in mind. So here, right, could be. If we pivot there, would that kill it? Well, then the whole thing could move down. Nothing says we have to go 100, the length of the A, because it was kind of a funky 4 anyway in terms of the symmetry here. So we don't need to go that far. Well, certainly we could go beyond that, right? We'd be in between the 50 and the 618. All right, you got to consider the dominant up here. So if we're going to go higher, right, there's going to be plenty of resistance, I guess is my point here. So to think that this is our low and we're starting off here, it's tough to make that call and have any confidence in it, right? So I don't know if you guys see enough there to be bullish off of that, but it's just like so much in crypto. It maybe. But is it good enough, right? Is it good enough to take a trade? Well, if you're a huge bull here, even that still, right? If we go back to that 30-minute, right? That the idea that the retracement is in, I think is suspect. So I think you'd have to be cautious about that. I think this is definitely one to be watching, right? But that does not look like we're done. Give me the ABC, I'm all over it. All over it. I've always liked this project. Always thought it had great potential, but this is just not. Why? So then you're thinking, well, shit, man, here, the reason why is because I don't want to miss the move. Well, if we do this, whether it's here or we get to that 50, odds are there will likely be an opportunity to get in via the first retracement. If it's going to play Elliott ball, we're going to get up here and get a completed impulse. Odds are there would be a corrective move for all the people that caught this, right? So those people that were bold enough, and if they got something like that, well, they should, right? They've been well rewarded for taking that risk. Would I sell it there? Not necessarily, but I would feel a whole lot better about the idea that I have some sort of a weird low in here if I can come off of this with a 5. So if we come off of this in a 5, does that kill the 4? Well, no, of course not, right? So because we could just be part of an ABC, this could go higher. So you have a lot of you have a lot of mixed signals. So many of the alts, you've got all of these mixed signals. So I would be a little reluctant to chase along here until I see better confirmation as to what's happening here and what happens when we get here, right? I mean, that's, what are we sitting at here? Let's call it $6. So it's not, I mean, it looks bigger than it is. So we're talking essentially, let's call it $6 to 680. It's an 80-cent move. Now, I know percentage gain, that can be substantial, right? If you load that up with leverage, but is that the setup that would support the idea that I want to go heavy here with hard leverage? I'd suggest not. Right? But certainly, again, like so much of the alts, right? We just need a little more confirmation. They're all kind of flirting with it, teasing the potential low. Well, some are. Others, it's hard to see how we are approaching a bottom anytime soon. So you got to trade what you see. You can't trade on hopium, right? I know there's so many, myself included, hoping that all season is coming. But right now, I see very few signs of it, enough to be aggressive on the long side. So approach with caution, but keep your eyes open. All right, guys, back to you later.